Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching from different time zones, good morning or good evening. My name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS. And we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating customized programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, Chevron, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, and Shell, to name a few. Experts say that pandemic will last for the next 3 to 5 years. And this is why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt in the new normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a remote team, and for all of you who are afraid that you can't keep your team and your business in the current situation. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead effectively in any situation, we are great to bring. We are, you know, blessed that we are able to interview such several leaders, thought leaders, business leaders from around the globe to share their experiences, what they do, and what they advise their clients with. So today, it's my great pleasure to introduce Kake. He has been in a variety of capacities in training around team building, leadership, and coaching in corporations and personal performance training and development. His interest is in self development work and therapies that have yet to become a mainstream, particularly in the field of deepening development in physical, mental, emotional well being. This is to nurture balance through awareness and connections towards living balanced and full lives. He believes that we are powerful beyond our wildest imagination, and it is important that we love ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. His interest in this work came about as he was looking for solutions for his own challenges as a result of a severe back injury in 2006. Kaka started his work life in arts administration before moving on the MICE and eventually brand consulting before leaving it to pursue self-development work. He has worked with statutory boards, multinational companies, small and medium enterprise in a number of industries spanning from petroleum trading, petrochemical, power generation, fashion, finance, and amongst others. So without so much further ado, I'd like to bring in Kake. Hi, Kake.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, everyone. So pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome, and it's our pleasure to have you today. And so we wanted to get as much from you, and so we will jump in right away. So
Sure.
I'll, and again, the topic for those who are new to us or who haven't watched us, it's on leadership and transformation. And the first question, of course, is for us. First three questions will give us a perspective on where you're actually coming from in terms of your answers. And then the 4 to 6 questions, I would say, would be the meaty part or the juicy part. And 7 to 8 question will be my Miss Universe questions.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So to start with, please bring us through or share with us what's your leadership experiences, your influencers, and probably if you have any leadership styles that you'd like to share with us or influencers that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Marilyn. Well, when I first read that question, I went like, ooh, okay. I started life not like a lot of people with a huge ambition to hit the top of the ranks and all that. I felt I was a bit like a sponge to
Mhm.
absorb whatever was around me and being very open to experiences. And so my first job as arts administration and then leading on to MICE, which I enjoyed immensely, brought me through many different management styles, a lot of
Mhm.
them corporate, and I was a bit like this sponge that was absorbing people's different styles, and for some reason I ended up working under a lot of women. I don't know why. Yeah, it was, and I learned from that from some of my friends that, oh my God, you're working under a woman. I went like, yeah, so what's wrong with that, And I realized that there were certain management styles which I found myself very drawn to and
Mhm.
thrive very well under. And these tend to be, and I think I looked at that for my own personality style as well, and that
Mhm.
I like to nurture and I like to be nurtured.
Yes.
It's like having, okay, this sounds bad, but it's like a mother figure around. And and what impressed me a lot was how people are able to put their personal stuff aside and remain very neutral and objective, whatever the task is at hand to look after. And that kind of management really impressed me a lot
Mhm.
I wanted to say growing up, but I guess I was growing up at that point. And and I found myself, whoever I'm working with, whether it's my subordinates or the clients, that I tend to have that kind of style with people, i.e., meaning that, where I will only ask you to do something if I know I can do it.
Mhm.
I will not ask you to do something because I don't want to do it or I wanted to like throw it somewhere else because I wanted to avoid it. But I have to make sure that I can do this. I can do this as well as anyone can. And I'm
Mhm.
empowering you to actually do that work for me so that I can release my own resources to do something else.
Mhm.
And the people I tend to respect a lot in terms of influences were bosses that were like that. I mean, I remember I was reporting to a human resource director who, yeah, lah, is a bit like a father figure, I guess. But there's this relation. Okay, I'm very relational to begin with, so
Yes.
it's a relationship that I forge, and we are able to have behind closed doors talk very openly about personal things as well as work things, and that connection gives us a lot of trust.
Mhm.
And I guess that's one big thing, trust.
Mhm.
Trust is a huge thing for me, and I think the other big thing I realized through the years is your authenticity.
Mhm.
I need to be able to trust you and know that you are on the level with me. And all my influences are those who are like that with me, who are very honest, very open, and just being very on the level with me. And I thrive in those kinds of conditions.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess that's my motto, how I work these days as well. It's like, I need to like you. I need to be able to confide. I need to be able, and you the same. So it's very much a two-way dynamic. And with teams that I've worked with, I mean, one of the questions you put out was, there was this dream team I was working with. I mean, it was really a dream team, and that was like 30 years ago. Gee, I'm giving my age away. Was it 30 years ago? Sorry, 25 years ago. That's close enough. And that was a really, really marvelous group of people I worked with. No questions asked. I'm with you. I don't need to tell you. You somehow know, and we gelled wonderfully together. We're able to enjoy. We were in nice at that time, and we were able to do things. Want to kill each other sometimes, but we know at the end of the day, you just go out for coffee, and there's and we know it's not personal. It's for the work. It's for the project at hand, and that stuff is really something I relish and enjoy a lot. I hope I'm answering your question.
Definitely, definitely. I love what you've been sharing with us. And a lot of us, I would say, like, that reminds me, the sharing that you've shared just now reminds me of, having that feminine side. I mean, a lot of us, when it comes to leadership, we tend to be more masculine about it. All the structures, profit, productivity, performance metrics, and all those stuff, right? And yet, like, what really makes it work for most of us as human, right? I mean, we're all humans. We're working with humans as well as a leader. Is that part where we can actually build that trust you've mentioned, the nurturing part, like, working as a family and relational. You said that you are so relational when it comes to work. You love that. That gives you, inspiration, motivations, from your experience in the past, and also of course being authentic, right? So, and I love that you've shared that with us, because I think that's also a reminder for most of us. If I can also, like, add on to that, and those countries that are doing well nowadays are being led by women. And this is a lot to do because I mean, like, the scene, the Arden, uh, just to give an example, and it's mainly because they're nurturing their intuition, how they uh, you know um how they make use of the feminine side of leadership really helps a lot, I would say, right? So having said that, in this conversation, how or what is leadership for you? How would you define it?
Actually, when you said that, I was thinking of Merkel. She just stepped down. I was just reading an article this morning on it, actually, and
Mm-hmm,
the kind of respect she commanded over 18 years is quite amazing.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, and actually leading from that to leadership, when you say the word leadership, it tends to be like, whoa, the strong person right there. I'm in the front of the army, I'm charging forward, I'm the leader, I've got this whole group behind me, I'm charging forward with everybody. Actually, that doesn't really speak to me that in that way in terms of leadership. I mean, for me, leadership tends to be a bit softer,
mm-hmm,
a bit okay lah. I mean, you could say it's like the feminine kind of thing. I thought I can't help but somehow veer towards that because I think from a perspective of my own stuff, feelings are very important for me.
mm-hmm,
So leadership for me is somebody who can instill motivation, trust,
mm-hmm,
is able to connect in a way that speaks to, okay, this sounds a bit wolfy, that speaks to your heart, if you know what I mean.
mm-hmm,
um, so they all tend to be the softer things,
mm-hmm,
and that nurturing nature. And again, I speak very much from the way what works for me
mm-hmm,
is how to draw this out from
mm-hmm,
people. And I guess being a coach now, I'm in that position for realizations and people to draw things out of themselves rather than tell you what to do. Um, and for me, leadership is about, you know, on the one hand, being a bit of a buffer when you need one. um, but very important is, okay, I'll tell you what I cannot stand. I cannot stand micromanagement. I would feel like I'm in a prison because I cannot move, I cannot maneuver, I cannot exercise any autonomy, any decision making. Uh, but I have to admit that when the time I was growing in a corporation, I had responsibilities thrown at me and that I wasn't ready to take.
mm-hmm,
The leaders were willing more to trust me than I was willing to trust myself.
mm-hmm,
Um, it got to a point where there were some things I needed to make a decision on in front of all the seniors.
mm-hmm,
And I remember being told, okay, you got to decide on something. Otherwise, all of us will be standing here and doing nothing. you know, and and that sense of empowerment was extremely powerful because that allowed me to grit my teeth, take a breath, and just say, okay, we go with this. Although my heart is in my mouth, but that allowed that certain freedom to, okay, that gave me permission to actually say something and go in a certain direction.
mm-hmm,
I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but that gave me an autonomy to function
mm-hmm,
and start believing, and to build that confidence along the way.
mm-hmm,
Um, does that part ever go away with somebody? No, it doesn't. It still stays with you, but it's just how you learn to manage it over time as you mature.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for me, leadership is about empowering others and giving that power, with guidance, of course, and not just throwing it to the person and say, like, you go do this, and then that
Mm-hmm.
person's left to figure it out by himself. Because that's also, in my opinion, not the correct way to do things. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's always nice to have a watchful eye over,
Mm-hmm.
even though you may not agree with what's being done, or no, it should be done. What is he doing? But somehow have the watchful openness to go like, oh, okay, let's see where he goes with this, and allow that openness to guide that management, so that the person learns to be to be able to function on its own and be able to eventually learn to lead. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really one part of transformation, not just for the person, but also for myself as the person giving the instruction. Because there's also learnings both ways around. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And I'm glad you've mentioned that again, that you've mentioned several times about instilling trust or having trust, or that connection that you have to have with the people. And again, leadership is all about influencing as well, right? And
Mm,
we, a lot of us have, you mentioned several times about the trust connection. And even like what you don't like about leaders of being too pushy, or giving all the direction and all those stuff. And gone are the days where leaders are, has to be like that, and especially now with COVID-19, hits us, and it's different. I mean, the connection part that you've been saying on how you can actually build that trust has been a challenge to most of us now that we're actually working remotely, right? And having said that, how would you actually define or describe the next normal?
the last 1.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
more than 1.5 years, um, from the shock of what happened to suddenly finding yourself stuck and locked up at home virtually,
Mm-hmm.
and then the reluctance to switch on the computer and speak to somebody like I'm speaking to you now,
Mm-hmm.
to everybody. It's like, it's so weird. It was so weird. And, and then we evolved. We started evolving to start to, despite being stuck at home, we kind of learn to enjoy it. We adjust. We
Mm-hmm.
adjust to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we tend to forget to dress up when we want to go to the office, if you know what I mean. And and that was kind of like the process for me. It was like, okay, I was very reluctant to use Zoom. It was so weird. It was so impersonal. But then we are creatures of adjustment and habits. We adapt. We are after all mammals and animal based, right? So we will adapt. But we have the ability to adapt quickly
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of survival, right? And yes, the news keeps changing, don't that doesn't it? I mean, like, I just heard COVID's going to be here, full stop. And what's that going to mean for us? I was just out in the shops, and it was like, I mean, in the Singapore context, even Mustafa's not 24 hours anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was quite shocked to learn this like 2 days ago. I said, "Oh, what happened?" And said, "Oh, because we don't have any more people coming in the night. In the middle of the night, the flow of traffic's a lot less."
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was one of their single most important unique selling points, right? And if they had gone on keeping that do or die, will keep open 24 hours, and despite suffering losses, they're just going to grind to a halt.
Mm-hmm.
So adjustments, 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 adjustments. Uncomfortable as it is, because we are creatures of, it's like we spend our whole lives trying to find something permanent to hang on to, and then COVID happens, and then everything's thrown out of the window. I might even have my job at risk. Suddenly, I'm around all my kids, or my family, and my space is very limited. Um, but we adjust. We somehow
Mm-hmm.
adjust. And I think the adjustment process is going to go on for
Mm-hmm.
the time being. I don't know for how long. But I think I was listening to one of these talks recently, and the person said that the problem with a lot of us is we're hoping for the old normal to come back. And because we're hoping for the old normal to come back, we get frustrated because we don't see it coming back. But if we not resign, but if we accept that the new normal and constant change is going to be
Mhm.
the new norm and accept it to work with it, then come what may, we're going to be somehow able to have that flexibility to
Mhm.
somehow, if I use the word dance with it,
Mhm.
and really I can't tell from the crystal ball because it's really murky right now where it's going to go. I mean, certain
Mhm.
countries are doing this, some countries are doing that. We
Mhm.
are quite comfortable here, but we're looking at, oh dear, what's happening in our nearby countries, our nearby neighbors, and we can't travel. Uh, I just heard just now from somebody that someone flew off to Bangkok a few days ago. She was the only passenger on the plane.
Wow.
So you can imagine, like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? And I myself actually feel quite tired about it. But as long as I decide to be very aware of what's going on
Mhm.
internally and
Mhm.
know that I'm going through these feelings rather than feeling
Mhm.
frustrated, um, I guess that's why I do the work I do, because it's really, even for myself, learning what the new normal is, and even in my line of work now, doing coaching and everything and doing online,
Mhm.
it's never going to beat like being in person. So I think
Mhm.
it's just really getting used to it at the end of the day, no matter what. I think that's the best way to just be have that flexibility and that
Mhm.
nimbleness to actually keep going at things like being thrown at us. You know,
Right,
yeah.
right. It's all about adapting and being more flexible on what's happening, and like what, like what we have discussed also in the past, it's all about like how you actually see it, right. It's all about turning all these crises into opportunities, or whether it's an opportunity to learn, it's an opportunity for you to experiment on some things, right. Turning these negative things that are happening right now into positivity or positive things, right. And I guess, we've seen a lot of silver linings as well. The realization about, the importance of mental health and well-being, and also the importance of, taking time to spend more time with our precious family or our loved ones, because you'll never know when you're going, right. So I mean, and that's like, and that's what all we can do to be able to adapt and be flexible about what's happening, right. I mean, we can't really push the old normal, or like, expect the old normal to be here at any
I
time.
mean, yeah, I mean, very simply, even if you walk into a mall, you could easily walk in from any entrance before. Now you can't, or even the hawker center, for example. You now have to
True.
find that one entrance to
Mhm.
walk in from. And
Mhm.
it's the way it is. Actually, I want to bring back a little point you made just now about how
Mhm.
we can see each issue as an opportunity to learn and to
Mhm.
think positively.
Mhm.
I would
Mhm.
actually say that before you get to that point,
Mhm.
when you're feeling that frustration, when you're feeling that
True.
lack of, when you're feeling that deficiency,
Mhm.
it's not. There's a difference between suppressing that and trying to look
Mhm.
positive and forcing yourself to look
Mhm.
positive. I'm not saying that at
True.
all. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
you need to recognize where you are, how you're
Mhm.
feeling. You need to
Right.
acknowledge. You need to respect your own feelings, and
Yes.
and suppressing it is probably the worst thing you can possibly do.
True. Mhm.
Because I noticed in the news too that suppression and pretending nothing happens. In the end, when it comes to the crunch, bizarre behavior starts to show up, as we've seen
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
in the
Right.
media. So it's very important to recognize that I'm feeling right now like this,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's very important to allow that feeling to be there. Because
Mhm.
as you allow the feeling to be there, interestingly enough, the more you allow it to be there, and I mean not festering it or making like into it, but just allowing it to be there, it actually goes away. And then when
Mhm.
that goes away, it opens up this this field of opportunity in front of you.
Mhm.
It's quite amazing. I have no idea how it works. But somehow when I'm feeling anger, for example, right?
Mhm.
So there's this always thought about, okay, I shouldn't feel angry. Okay, I need to push this anger
Mhm.
aside, because I should show up
Mhm.
this way. It's wrong to be angry.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you do that, you're basically suppressing it. And when you
Mhm.
suppress it, it does funny things to your system.
Mhm.
And if you suppress it long enough, a little thing will blow it up.
Mhm.
Like, oh, this happened to somebody I knew recently. Something as silly as the washing detergent in the kitchen, you know, and that suddenly blows up the whole thing. I'm going like, and it feels like you're blowing up over this little piece of soap, but there's a much deeper thing that's running underneath that could be the cause of this. But
Mhm.
and I suspect it's because there's too much suppression of what should be and shouldn't be. And I think where I come from is it's very important to allow
Mhm.
those feelings to show up and get
Yes.
and let it pass, and let it pass, and then
Right.
that opens up new space.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and for reminding us, and that actually leads me to the next question, because all this creates problems, right? So, from your experience, working in the corporate world in the past and now working with corporate leaders as well, what would you say would be the top three problems that they normally face?
Corporate leaders, they have many, especially if you're stuck in between. You got somebody above you and somebody below you, right?
Oh,
You're kind
yes.
of you're kind of always jammed in between to, okay, the last thing you want to do is be a nice guy to everybody, because in the end, nobody wins. Nobody wins at that game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really call it a game sometimes, because as long as you're trying to fit into a mold that you think you are, which you probably
Mm-hmm.
are not, you're guaranteed to suffer at some level, either
Mm-hmm.
fail or you will suffer physically, or your health will suffer, because
Mm-hmm.
it's just putting on too much that's not
Mm-hmm.
true to yourself, and it will
Mm-hmm.
show up eventually. So for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of leaders who are working in corporate, I mean, I was just talking to a colleague of mine just now. Having I find myself having to phrase my words carefully, if you know what I mean, so that I imply things. If I'm too direct, it's not nice. If I want to tell somebody off below me, it's not so bad. If I want to tell somebody off on top that I don't quite agree with, I need to be really diplomatic about it. Of course, there are ways of doing it that empowers everybody, but I think the toll it takes on you to play that role, you,
Mm-hmm.
you need to really ground yourself to be able to deal with things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
and 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 nowadays the younger set, especially the
Mm-hmm.
millennials, or whatever you call them,
Mm-hmm.
the people in the millennium, they're a lot more informed, and basically the old style of leadership doesn't work anymore, because they probably
Mm-hmm.
know as much as you, if not more. And they probably have the grapevine to know everything that's happening. And even if you toe an official line, you need to address all those things that's happening underneath. So those are
Mm-hmm.
added challenges that you can't get away with being very, very dictatorial or very directive, because you need
Mm-hmm.
to justify why you're taking that decision or suggesting that. Um, the funny thing is, I did a corporate training a few years ago, and I was very surprised. And this was a huge multinational of FMCG stuff. And I was very amazed. They had a message from, to the participants, they had a message from the senior management. And I was actually very surprised that they were talking about the bigger picture, being connected to a bigger picture for not just the business, but your work, who you are, what you bring on the table, what you're connected to, what you can contribute,
Mm-hmm.
was connected to a far, far bigger thing than just do, results, KPIs and all that. But it was connected to a far bigger what is it about you that you can bring into this that can
Mhm.
be a contribution
Mhm.
to a much bigger scope of things within the company and actually more like yourself as well.
Mhm.
So it's not like the work and your private life and personal life are separate. They're actually closing in to become meshed together. And I mean that
Mhm.
in a good way. Not that you work 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
But really, whatever you bring onto the work is part of you that will show up at home or wherever else. Or it could be a
Mhm.
facet of yourself that you need to recognize that it's a part of you.
Mhm.
Uh, and for me, that's a really great thing, you know. And when you say top three problems, I'm just looking at the question again. Top three problems, right? I think adjusting to the new way that people think, adjusting to changes that happen, not just COVID, technology changes. I notice the older you get, the worse you get with technology, for example.
Mhm.
Um, and things change very fast, especially if you're in IT. Oh my gosh, you know, if you don't keep up with it, you'll lose it. Um, what else could there be? I mean, now then there are the other issues that I was mentioning. You know, where you're in the management level, there's this thing. Okay, I'm harping back a bit to trust and all that, and relationship, and somehow in okay, my belief is this: if you find yourself defined by your position and your profession and your
Mhm.
occupation by what you learned in school and your position in a hierarchy, um, then my question would be, what if we take all this away? What's there? And if you find yourself defined by all these roles and titles, what comes with it inevitably also is, if you're very good at it, an ego mindset that goes with it, and that equals to protecting your turf, because you will feel intimidated by somebody who could be possibly better than you,
Mhm.
and really having to have humility, build in some humility for yourself to know that yes, there'll always be somebody better than you, and maybe you can learn from that person. And for me, my motto has always been be around people who are always better than you, because then you can always up your game, you know, up your
Mhm.
game and move forward in a much bigger way. So I don't know if I'm saying the three issues, but these are some things that speak a lot to me. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So if I got that correctly, you were saying about more towards adjusting to the changes that is happening, not only COVID-19, of course, and having that ego, and especially for big companies to be able to, preserve an image because of the designation, as you mentioned earlier, right? Like, a lot of people are actually thinking that that position or designation is actually like what defines them, right? So, having said all these, problems that most leaders do face, what do you believe will be the role of, or what will be the, like, the important capabilities or skills that leaders must have to address these problems, or probably, what they must have, because we've talked about adapting in the new normal, and definitely there has to be like a skills or capabilities that they have to, take note of, or to, have, so that they can continue to lead effectively, right?
Yeah. An honest, I'm just thinking off my head now, an honest, open arrangement or system of feedback actually would help a
Mm-hmm.
lot. That
Mm-hmm.
keeps them in touch with what's going on below.
Mm-hmm.
And I think leaders are beginning to be a bit more open about having coaches around them, having people who are outside of their field and outside of their realm to be um, able to let them see things that
Mm-hmm.
they might be blindsided to. I
Yes.
mean, I'm just talking in terms of, like, even the best sportsmen, the top sportsmen have coaches. I mean, they have
Mm-hmm.
people who are out, a football game as a coach that will like train them
Mm-hmm.
and kind
Yeah.
of like, direct them, have them. He will look at the whole game, what's missing, what you need to put in, and so on and so forth. And I think leaders are becoming a little more receptive to
Mhm.
that and
Mhm.
getting off that stigma that, oh, I have a coach. Someone says I need to be coached. There's something wrong with me. So I think really um, that tends to be, it gives them as an extra set of eyes from the coach, extra set of eyes from the subordinates,
Mhm.
um, and creating this um, I'm a boss does not mean that I'm a tyrant. Mentality needs to be shifted somewhat, and some of these feedback can be a bitter pill to swallow, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you build this
Mhm.
up yourself,
Mhm.
and um, and you find that some things are not working, and when feedback comes back to you from either sources from industry or sources from your own closest to you, and it's sometimes a really hard pill to swallow because your pride and joy is, hey, I created this, I made this happen,
Mhm.
um, but yet be soft enough to be able to adjust. Like certain establishments, my God, they if you stick too much to your guns, like Kodak did with the film, and decided that nah, digital's gonna die. Guess what happened to them? Things change, and I think we need to be really aware of changes. And although you might find yourself resistant to change at first, at least be open to hear it out
Mhm.
and see how it will affect you and what changes you might want to put in place in order that these things work out for the better of everybody. Does that
Yes.
does that help?
Yes, definitely, definitely. So I'm actually just summarizing it, like how do I write it, which one, and
Uh,
yeah. So basically, if I summarize it into three, it's basically being open to feedback, and that includes having a coach or an external partner, or someone who would help you see your blind spot, and then of course open to your own knowing, and being learnable, teachable, and own being accountable of your own progress, basically. And of course, we've said it this many times, being able to be adaptable, right? So adaptability will be really
correct,
to
correct. But
Mhm.
yeah, correct. I must say that that looks all fine and dandy in theory, lah. But the reality of it is the resistance is very real.
Mhm.
The resistance is very big and very real. And
Exactly.
yeah, and to get over that actually requires really quite a bit of work to actually even be open enough to listen. And I'm saying
Yes.
that really from personal experience because I know I've had teachers and people around me who tell me this way, and for years I would say no, 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 no. And then when it finally breaks through, the question I get asked is, what took you so long?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I was just resisting it because that's the way I was taught, that's the way I know, and that's the way I know it's correct. And now you're telling me everything that I've done is wrong. Um, so rightly so, that resistance is super real. I mean, it
Right.
can't get any worse than that. So it's nice on paper to say being open and all that, but the reality of the dynamic is actually quite challenging.
Yes, true. And you have to and for a person or a leader to, be able to be open to that, it takes really, like, getting rid of your ego or your pride, and being able to really be open on the process, because it takes a process. It's a journey. It doesn't take overnight to change.
Oh,
It takes
absolutely.
effort and all those stuff, right? So we've talked a lot about adaptability, openness, being accountable to your own learning. And so that leads me to my next question on, what do you actually believe will be the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order to thrive in the next normal? Because that would be I would say it can be interconnected, right? I'm
Oh,
just
totally,
your
totally.
insight.
Leadership, learning, transformation are all meshed into one. Because to
Yes.
be leaders, we need to continue learning. We are not stuck and fixed on something. And
Mm-hmm.
transformation is the process that leads you from learning into leadership.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's, especially now, that actually is going to need to be the operative word.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot stick on something
Mm-hmm.
and die, just hang on to it for dear life because it ain't gonna work, Um, I also I did write something which alluded to, okay, this might be a bit frank for some people, but we need to get beyond thinking, our thinking,
Mm-hmm.
because we say yes, 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 but your whole body might be going somewhere else. I think we've come across people who go like lip service, who say yes to everything, but somehow it's not gonna happen because they don't mean it. But what makes us even sense that we know they don't mean it? But I think basically the body and the mind need to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring in the body because we tend to forget in a very business environment that we have a body,
Mm-hmm.
and that there are a lot of neuroreceptors in the body. And if you're feeling angry, you're feeling sad, you're feeling pressured, you're feeling whatever feeling you're experiencing, happy, sad, empowered, motivated, whatever, you hardly ever think it. You always feel it somewhere in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an example of how important the body is in
Mm-hmm.
all this. And
Mm-hmm.
really, the two need to function as one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether you've seen that iceberg, that very famous iceberg
Yes.
illustration of like the unconscious versus the conscious, of
Mm-hmm.
how conventional wisdom would think that because we place so much importance in the consciousness of what we're
Mm-hmm.
conscious of, that we think that is it. But you realize that your whole other part of you functions 24/7. Your consciousness doesn't. Your conscious sleeps after like a few hours at work. You need to sleep, but your unconscious still works. So you can imagine how much that part of you is absorbing around you. And wouldn't it be really great to be able to get in touch with that part?
Mm-hmm.
And then really that brings out the essence of who and what you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something about learning and a way of leading that is unique to you, that you feel very strongly about, and I know feel strongly about, not because somebody else told you, not because somebody else did it and you're following somebody's example. No, it needs to speak to you. And then use that as a stepping stone to start that transformation. It's always taking courage to be able to do something that nobody
Mm-hmm.
else has done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a huge learning. I mean, look at Steve Jobs. Look at all these other innovators. They started from somewhere, but they believed what they had was not in the norm, but they
Mm-hmm.
pursued it nonetheless because they had a big thing about it, a passion for it or whatever it is. But that was the one that led to. I mean, Steve Jobs wasn't around. Do you think we'll have the iPhone or even what we're doing in our mobiles now? You know, it starts with that. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be something big. It's just something that you feel uniquely that's yours and that you want to bring forth as a way that, if anything, you can test it first.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't work, okay, let's go back to the drawing board, and okay, let's see what I need to shift. So it's that constant fluidity that you need to exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's becoming more and more and more normal now. Which we
Yes.
need to try. We need to try out new things. I mean, it's been said that this new normal is actually a reset. And what do you mean by a reset? A reset means everything that worked before may not work now. And
Exactly.
exactly. And we need to find where that ground is. And that ground may call forth your creativity, may call forth you stepping out, may call forth you transforming out of a normal routine that you're so used to, and it takes courage, and that's something that's really exciting to be working on.
Yes, true. And I really appreciate, reminding us that, our body and mind is integrated. And so for us to really, transform, we have to work on like every aspect of our life in fact, right? I mean, to be able to learn, to be able to lead, and to be able to finally transform, it takes a journey and several changes that are integrated or interconnected within us. So I'd like to find out, what will you do if you have a magic wand and can use it?
Oh, that's the Miss Universe question, is it? Oh, magic wand. I think my wish is for everyone to be in touch with themselves.
Mm-hmm,
And the magic wand is having patience with themselves.
mm-hmm.
And the magic wand is that everybody is okay. This one's a little wishy washy, a bit like tutu. It's genetically we're not very different from one another,
Exactly. Mm-hmm,
and it's really about seeing beyond differences and
mm-hmm,
looking at each other's contribution. Beyond color, beyond creed, beyond education, everybody's got something to offer, and it's for everybody to actually see beyond what they see or what their eyes are telling them, to be able to see beyond those filters.
yes, true, true. And it's interesting to know because I've actually attended this 24-hour self-leadership program last time, and one of the speakers shared actually that, she actually took this DNA test that, is going on now, and she found out that her mix is like, it's like, how she looks is, of course, she's a black, on how she looks, but her blood or her DNA shows that she has like European, probably more European blood, and then Asian. And then she said, no wonder I love a lot, I love working with Asian and all those stuff. And probably like, only a few of the DNA shows that, you know a lot of the DNA shows more towards Europe and Asia, and it's a combination of all. And that reminds us that, what you just shared, that, we are all interconnected, we are one. We used to be in just one, uh in what we used to be like having one race, one language. And because of the, what happened in the past, where, the continents were separated, the countries were separated, so there goes the, different languages and all. But in fact, we are actually one family, all of us, wherever they are in the world, whatever they look like and whatever color, we're actually connected, right? And so that's a great reminder to, um continue to be, be respectful of others. That's basic.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, what you said about how that person found that she realized that she liked working in with Oriental or Chinese, and all.
Yes.
It reminds me of my cousin, because my cousin was born. He's Chinese, born
Mm-hmm,
and bred in Canada. Never stepped of his life into Singapore.
mm-hmm,
Majority of the family is here, but his
mm-hmm,
family is in Canada. But the funny thing was,
mm-hmm,
when he actually came here, for some strange reason, he immediately felt at home here.
mm-hmm.
So these are the little things that I don't know whether it's genetic or otherwise, that somehow is an imprint that has you identify with something that's
Yeah,
innate, but you are unconscious of. And it
true,
shows
true.
up. It shows up as some kind of draw and attention. And
Mhm,
it's interesting sometimes when we really deep work, to find out where
mhm,
those links are, and like, oh, no wonder it's this, no wonder it's that. They call this
mhm.
epigenetic, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's quite
Very
amazing.
interesting, right? So, that leads me to my last question to you, that if you were to ask yourself a question, we had a lot of interesting topics and conversations in the last almost 1 hour. So, w- if you were to ask yourself a question that, you can best answer, what would it be?
You know what I wrote when you asked that question? I was thinking of scratching my head. What could that be? And then I came up, and what the thought came up for me. Yeah, what if I knew what I knew, what I know now, 30 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
How would things be different? How would I have showed up differently? How would life have been different? Um, and your operative word is that I can answer, right? and what? And like, yeah, things would have been really different, really, really different. We went through this whole period of wanting to be like everybody else, fit in with the Joneses or match
Mm-hmm.
up to the Joneses, and then slowly evolve to hear, to be able to listen to my to live, to be able to listen to what internally is saying and allow myself to work on that part. But actually, to be honest, none of this would come about if I had not had the experience of what I did, and that
Mm-hmm.
itself is like an evolution process to like where it is now, and it is still evolving very much so. Just because I chose it that way, I wanted it that way, and I'm just looking forward to exciting things still unfolding, whatever way it looks.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's always, that expectation of what's gonna unfold in the next days or years, right? And be able to evolve through the experiences and the journey we have, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
before we end the interview, is there anything more that you'd like to add um, and share to our audience?
Um, Not really. I'm just excited to have this opportunity to verbalize some of my own thoughts and experience, and I certainly hope it has been really helpful in some way or other, or at least to have you start to venture a little inward, perhaps. And I think one word that came up from you while in our conversation that I have not said yet, oh, I did say it, is the word patience. One has to have patience with oneself. Magic one, instant magic one doesn't happen. It's always a process.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, so that, gives and hopefully inspires our audience to, to stay connected to themselves, stay patient, and to, continuously evolve and work on yourself. So with that, I really thank you for all the nuggets that you've shared with us. It's really inspiring and very authentic, I would say as well. So
Thank
we
you.
really thank you, Kake, for that. And,
Thank
thank
you.
you everyone who's watching us or who would watch us on the replay, and hope you will get, you get inspired that you're a work in progress, and, there's still hope. And so do join us in, in this journey to be able to fight this pandemic that, cause a lot of challenges. And so together we can turn it into opportunity, through these several interventions that we're running. Just earlier before this, we had an amazing masterclass on digital transformation. And soon we will be organizing something exciting, which is another summit on leadership. So, just, continuously learn and, engage with similar things so that you can get not only the learnings but probably realizations. And remember that even the richest people or investors in the world say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So with that, we would like to leave you with this quote: if your action creates legacy that inspires others to dream more, to do more, to be more, and to become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Kake. Have a nice day.
Thank
Bye
you. Thank
for
you very
now.
much. Bye, everyone.